Ready?
Ready.
All right, guys, welcome. We have a special guest today, Eli. He's actor. He's old friend, old coworker of me and Johnny. We spent a lot of time together years ago, right? Like 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
It's crazy, dude. Yeah, it's about that long. I'm like, I hate thinking about how long it was, dude. But yeah, about that long.
So tell me what have you been up to with in these last few years? Like what I know a little bit about it, but I purposely didn't want to ask too much so we can talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, man. So just with kind of with regard to acting, I had actually done acting out of high school. I did improv at the Off Broadway Theater in Salt Lake.
Okay.
So I did that for a while, and then, well, not a while, probably like less than a year. Then after that, I ended up going to um, doing a couple of plays for the Zion's Theater Company. So I did Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Persuasion. Actually, when I was at SPS or
No, you're good.
okay, I was like, should I not say? Should I?
You're
We'll
good.
edit that out. Don't
Okay,
worry.
like
No, I'm
don't
just
dox
kidding.
us. But yeah, when I was at the last place that we used to work at, I was wrapping up the last play that I think I've done since. So that was called Persuasion. And then at that point, I was like, all right, I got to get serious about my career. I got to
Right.
make sure because really, unfortunately, especially at that time, it was costing just to park downtown. It was costing about $4 a night, and then, and no disrespect to anyone in the arts, but you'd get a check for like $20 at the end of the whole production.
Wow.
Wow.
So you're losing money, but you just love to do it, right? So I was like, all right, I got to buckle down, and then I focused on my career. But it was during the outbreak that I'm grateful I was able to move. My twin and I were living together. He had just gotten out of the service with his wife, and we wanted to move our mom in with us. Unfortunately, at that time, she was almost to the point where she was terminal.
Okay.
So we wanted to spend as much time as we could with her. And, she would talk every now and then about, me being in movies and stuff. And then I just started thinking more and more like, if I don't go and try this, I really wanted to do it while she was still alive.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I don't go and try this, I'll always wonder,
Yeah, for sure.
So and I'm grateful every day, man, because I just looked up acting classes, in our area. And I ended up finding one that has really helped me to get on this really cool trajectory that I'm on now. So I studied because when you're on stage, even though the fundamentals are the same, there are techniques that are way different.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to study film for a year and understand what the nuance was. And then after I had gotten that down, I went out, I started working on student projects, and then just small indie projects. And I'm grateful in the last year and a half, things have really accelerated. So, of course, Johnny, thanks for coming. So, this last Saturday, we had our premiere for Among the Eight at the district. And, I'm pretty proud of how that turned out. And it was just a really fun experience. So, that was the first feature film I've done where I'm the lead. We have another one that we're going to be working on at the end of the summer. I'm actually directing a short film next month, and then there's a couple more kind of smaller parts that I have in other movies, and then more things coming. So
That's cool. How does that for somebody that I've never known anybody to be an actor, how does that work? So you go to school, right? You learn the arts, the processes. What's like the next step that comes from that?
yeah, honestly, and if you're listening and just wondering, like, could I do this? It doesn't hurt to try. I think all of us have the same goal in life that you don't want to be. I mean, best case scenario, we're on a bed in our last days, and we don't want to wonder, what could have been, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you're at home and you're just wondering, like, hey, I've always been interested in that, try it, you know?
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Exactly, bro. And so, I'm really grateful that I did. I will say, people weed themselves out a little bit when they're like, wait a minute, this feels like work.
Yeah, for sure.
Eli, one thing too, man. You have a very interesting story. Other thing too, for the people that don't know you, I know you gave a little bit of the background of your how you became into acting and what led you to it. Do you want to give a little bit of your background and introduce yourself? How?
Yeah, like just kind of talk about me growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
because you have an interesting story, right?
yeah.
You shared it when we did the premiere. I had the honors of being there, meeting your whole cast, seeing the movie, which was awesome. It's among the eight, right?
Hmm.
Um, you had to check it out. Do you know when it's come to streaming?
Right now, it's running in a few film festivals
Oh, nice.
internationally. So fingers crossed, we bring home. We're in 6 different categories, and so we're hoping to get a few laurels to add to the movie. And then actually, Johnny, there's a slim chance, but a chance that we're going to, because we had to cut 15 minutes out of the movie in order to put the theatrical version in there because we only have the auditorium for so long.
You're right.
So there's actually a chance that what we put on streaming will be the full hour 45 runtime
Nice.
that I was telling the director to call the director's cut. So fingers crossed that that'll happen too.
It's gonna
That's cool.
happen. Just throw it out there in the universe.
Thanks, bro.
Like everything else, like I said, Jason said, I'm starstruck. Future rising star, a friend that we hanged out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
These two
just,
guys were my bodyguards at SPS.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
yep,
What was your name, Eli? What was
bone
your
crusher,
okay?
man.
And what was Jason the enforcer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jason.
And what was
That's
my
right,
name?
man.
Because I don't want to be so
That
big.
was Johnny's job to give everybody nicknames.
Yep, we called him the Godfather back then.
Yep.
Why? Because I walked around like if I owned the shop.
Yep.
It was your idea, I think, to first start going just to get the group together and hang out. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, I met good friends from there. As you could see, I met you, Jason. Me and Jason's been hanging out for a while. He's already getting tired of me, so that's why I called you, Eli. Eli,
No, but
I need another friend.
back to what Johnny said, I want to hear a little bit about your childhood. Did you grow up in Utah? Were you born in Utah?
Oh,
yeah, man. So you're good, brother. I grew up in Salt Lake City. What the locals will refer to as Glendale, but it's called Poplar Grove.
Okay.
And so at that time, it's not to date myself or age myself, but it was the early '90s, and there was a lot of gang violence here at the time. Nothing like compared to, of course, like L.A., Compton,
Right.
South
The big
Central.
cities. Yeah.
Like all them had it way worse.
where I used to live.
Yeah, exactly right. Freedom fighter for sure. But no, but it was rough. I lived through 2 drive-by shootings. I've actually been stabbed. I've had a gun pointed at me 4 times. So, but at the same time, it's just those things where when you're young, you don't really know, you don't have a concept of what like normal is. You're defining normal every day.
Right.
So, but I grew up out there. Actually, just to kind of like back up, and you guys let me know if I'm going too far back. I don't know how much of my life story you're wanting here.
No, you're good,
No,
dude.
you're good. We're
Yeah.
interested. Like I told you, you have a nice backstory to it and where it led you to. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thanks so much, man. Fingers crossed too. There's a lot more to come.
Throw it out there in the universe. It's gonna
Absolutely,
happen.
bro. But yeah, so basically, my mom was, my mom and dad got divorced when my brother and I were like 1.5. My mom took us. My dad took our sister. Unfortunately, our mom through the first, kind of just the way that she lived her life. She grew up in a strict military family, so when she became an adult, she wanted to kind of explore, and she dove into some of the drug scenes that were out here. Um, and through that, even though she never did drugs, she had a lot of networking. So she became not like big time, but she was what's known as a distributor.
Gotcha.
Not dealer, right, but distributor. Um, and so one of the earliest memories that I have, like I said, our mom was taking care of us. We'd just go see our dad on the weekends. We'd switch where my sister would stay with our mom. But one of the earliest things that I remember, man, was me and my twin were asleep on the couch. We'd always sleep on the couch so we could catch our mom when she came in the door,
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
because she'd always be out at night. And so we got raided by the DEA. And so it was, we were about 4 at the time, but it was crazy because at first there were people who would hang out around the apartment we were at, and they came like running up the stairs. And it was like a train, bro. Like just all these people, I'm like waking up the morning light, but it was just like a blur of people coming in
Knock
the
the door
door.
down and everything.
Yeah,
How
but
old were you
before
guys?
that, we were like 4.
Oh wow, you remember like it was yesterday, huh?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. That's like one of the most biggest childhood memory I have. But at first, before the DEA showed up, it was these people who were just outside of the apartment that probably knew my mom through whatever means. Um, and it was crazy, dude, because it was just loud, like this big blur of people. And then they come in and they slam the door closed, they lock it. And I haven't experienced that silence ever since. Like, I think one time when I was camping in Camas and it was just dead quiet,
Yeah.
that's what that was like, where it was just all of a sudden just dead. And my brother and I are like looking at each other, like, what's going on? And then you hear the stairs start to shake.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, and I don't remember them announcing anything, but literally, man, it was just like, boom, the door blew off the hinges. And then the DEA agents came. They started arresting everybody. Um, and, it was rough, man, because for one, like, we're just these kids and we're watching like people we care about or know, other people that we'd never seen before, remember seeing, watch them getting taken away in handcuffs by these dudes in ski masks. And then our, uh, they started to tear apart like everything, right? They started, they kicked us off the couch. They started going through all the cushions. They went through, um, like all the dishes cupboards. They were breaking everything. And then what got my brother was we had a Garfield stuffed animal, and they tore that open, and man, he was just
Oh, that's
pissed.
rough.
Oh
Yeah,
wow, that's good. I mean, that's big trauma right there.
yeah, dude. He got his revenge when we got taken in. I'll tell you
Oh,
that.
nice, nice.
But so we, it was rough. Of course, like we were seeing everyone that we know get taken away, and
So, sorry to
yeah, you're okay,
interrupt.
bro.
Who's it? And it's an apartment, correct, or a house?
Yeah, and it's crazy because I always wondered where the apartments were, and it was like 8 years ago, dude. I was walking through like by Liberty Park,
Uh-huh.
and I turn up this street, and I'm like, no way.
Like you remembered.
Like there it is, yeah. And I remember
Dang.
like playing in the backyard, like climbing on the dumpster to climb the brick wall to mess with a Rottweiler on the other side.
Wow,
You
you're
know, a
brave.
kid, you're invincible.
All right,
Yeah.
you're brave.
And so, but yeah, man. So that was here locally, yeah, and it was
So
just crazy.
so what did you felt when you saw that house?
Oh man, it was a trip, right? Because at first, I was, I'm very grateful. Actually, just about the time that it was my first year that we were all working together.
Yeah.
I was going to therapy because I realized I'm like hanging out at like parties, right? We were all hanging out, and I just look around one day and I'm like, dang, I don't laugh.
Yeah.
I
I'm like,
remember that. You
yeah,
talking to me about that.
exactly, bro. Yep. And I was like, I don't laugh. I don't like, I'm not, even though like I'm having fun, I'm in the moment.
Right.
And I was that dude that like people would come up to at parties, hey man, you okay? I'm like, yeah. Like, why does everyone ask me that?
You had that serious face.
Yeah, dude. But then,
But you were cool, man. I always remember you were cool.
thanks, brother. Yeah, and I always had fun. But then, yeah, like my therapist, she was phenomenal. Right away, she was like, yeah, of course, you've lived through some things, and just you had learned to keep an armor around yourself as a child, and that got you through your difficult times. But now nothing is in, and you're not present in your life.
Right.
Nice.
And so we did a therapy called EMDR therapy that helped me to actually like learn to stay grounded, be present, and honestly to recognize the strength in being vulnerable.
Yeah, for sure. I've dealt with the same thing as like you speak about carrying an armor, right, to protect yourself. Like as children, when you go through trauma, you're so vulnerable, right? You're just a little kid. You don't know what's going on. And especially like big things like that, if DEA is coming in, there's no safety in that. You don't feel safe. So you have to build up these walls in order to survive, like your therapist said. And so becoming aware of that and being able to be like, okay, like I'm safe now, right? Like I can protect myself. I don't have to go to these parties and be in the corner like super serious or, you know. And so I feel like I've experienced the same thing with my traumas from my childhood that caused me to put up these walls. So I
Right.
get exactly what you're saying with that.
Yeah, and honestly, I just wanted to say too, while I'm borrowing your guys' platform, thank you so much. I didn't even say you guys. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really cool. I've been listening to every episode. I love what you guys are doing.
Appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate it.
Of course. And you guys have talked to that, to the importance of therapy, to self-discovery, self-analysis. I think that's really powerful. And just to echo what's being said here, like don't feel as if there's any kind of weakness seeking help because, you're only your strongest self when you can get to that place of admitting you need help,
Yeah.
and then it just helps you to serve other people. Like that's my motivation.
Yeah, and for me, I had a conversation just earlier. I was having coffee with a friend, and we were talking about, being a man, and you're told as a kid, right, that you have to be tough. You can't cry. You can't show emotions. We're taught all these things that we have a lot of men that are, full adults that aren't in touch with their emotions, aren't in touch with what they're feeling, aren't in touch with, what armor they have up and how you're moving through life. So I think like Eli says, touching on like therapy and journaling and just being open to knowledge. This podcast is one of those things for me where I want to bring that up and talk about those things so that other men out there, other kids, other boys can look and be like, hey, these guys are talking about, ways that they work on themselves. They're able to talk about their emotions, be vulnerable, have these vulnerable conversations. And it's not like oh, you're a pussy because, you're talking about it. No, if anything, for me, if I can have conversations that are vulnerable with other men, that shows me how tough you are because you really have to be tough in order to face those demons,
Yeah, no, I totally agree, bro. And that's like, I'm grateful that like recent generations are really starting to recognize that. Of course, there are certain cultural barriers and things like that still, and I think this helps a lot to kind of get people out there. But you're absolutely right, bro. Like, for one, it's just that element of being like, I'm going to share something deep, and not to your point, like guys can't articulate how they feel because they don't know how they feel, let alone, you know like sometimes absorb what somebody else is sharing with them where they're just like okay. And that's like sometimes they'll make a joke, which is I think the more common thing because they don't know how to
Right.
like say, hey man, that's rough, and kind of empathize. But more to that point, when you're able to do that, and if somebody crosses the line, that's when you're like, okay, which Eli do you want to meet?
Oh,
And
nice.
Right.
you
Well,
know
you
what I
know
mean?
what? That's the funny part. That's a good thing because study shows that people don't notice that men are going through like mental issues, like they're depressed or they're sad because we're always fighters, right? Or we'll be like, "Don't worry, I got this," right?
Right.
We're hurting inside and we're not expressing that. Until we break down and like Eli say, which Eli do you want to meet, or you do something crazy?
Mhm.
That's when like, oh, he had some kind of mental issue, or you go off the walls. Then they'll either call you crazy and focus you that you have a mental issue. But that's why my generation, like I said, going forward, my experience in my culture, I'm a Generation X. They don't believe in depression and anxiety or counseling. And even my counselor nowadays says that men still don't seek counseling. And it's hard. So
Mhm.
giving this platform and you sharing this shows that there's everybody goes through these issues.
Absolutely, man. Because what's unfortunate about that, and I think it's something that our generation learned, is that because often it is that it's kind of our duty, especially in a familiar setting, where I'll figure it out. I can handle it. It's okay, because we'd rather take on. Now, I'm not a father, so I can't speak to that experience, but just with those that I love, I would rather take that responsibility or pain on for them just to make sure everything ends up okay. But what happens is if you have no outlet for all of that goes on, unfortunately, the same people who you're trying to protect and take care of are the ones that are closest to you that end up getting hurt the most.
Of course.
That is so true. Sorry.
And they see that, right? Like I'm aware of like being a kid and seeing the male role models that I have not show emotion, right? Or react in anger. Like that was the way that you proved how tough you were, right? Like reacting in anger and exploding. And so I get exactly what you're saying. The people, we try to suppress these emotions and these feelings, and we end up blowing up either on people that we love or strangers end up feeling the wrath. And so being able to like work through those emotions, and not just that, for me and my kids specifically, like my boys, I talk to them about how I'm feeling. I talk to them about those issues and like the things that I go through, just so that they're aware, like, hey, you know what? My dad goes, my son went through a breakup a few weeks ago. And so I'm like, dude, I know exactly what you're going through. Like, let's talk about it. You probably feel this way. And he's like, yeah. And you probably think these things. Yep. And so kind of being able to share that and walk him through that versus, if I've gone through a breakup and I'm like, no, I'm good, and in reality, we all know that it's a difficult time, right? So I think it's important to be able to share that with like even if it's not your kids, if it's your, nephews, nieces, whoever, being able to give them that masculine figure that like, oh, hey, you know what? This dude, Eli looks tough and all that, but he talks about his feelings and he talks about his emotions, which to me, like I said, that's the true meaning of being a man and being tough.
Right. Like that's real strength.
Yeah, I mean, and then I mean, like I said, men are afraid to ask for help, but that's why we do this platform, so you don't feel afraid of asking for help or getting a guidance how to get help. Like I said, but Eli, the other interesting story. So when you went through all of this stuff, with the raid and everything like that. So what's the next step after there? You said that did you go to like foster care or how was that?
Yeah, man. It was actually pretty interesting. So, uh, and just to really go back, I think that one of the hardest elements about that day was we were looking for our mom and she wasn't there, you know?
Yeah, that's tough.
And so it's crazy because through everything, my mom was always like, respect the cops, be good to the cops. So they were like, hey, let's go for a ride. And we are like, okay, like we thought it'd be fun to ride in a cop car.
Yeah.
And then we were driving for a hot minute. And then me and my brother were like, hey, like, when are we going home? And they laughed at us, dude.
Oh,
And so then when they took us into the processing facility, thankfully, I just want to say things have changed a lot. So my brother and I have been in the foster system 2 different times. And from the time that we were first in to the time that we were in and seeing things, I have so many friends and loved ones who either support the foster system or are like caseworkers in the foster system. And the way that they've changed since what I'm about to say is night and day. But in the processing center, they kind of locked us in a room while they were trying to figure out what to do with us. And this is where I said my brother got his revenge. They had those like, toys and these things, and they had like a little stuffed animal. And my brother worked at that stuffed animal too, like the whole time until he could like tear it apart. But then they came in and they were like, they're asking these 4-year-old kids, "Are you allergic to dogs?" And I didn't know what allergic was,
right.
you know.
Wow.
And so he said no. I said yes. And so they actually put us in 2 different foster homes.
Oh,
Oh, just
And
off of that.
uh-huh.
yeah.
And so they um it was crazy, man. Not to go too deep into it, but they separated us, put us in 2 different foster homes, but 3 days in, I want to say, I mean, initially it was a blur, but we weren't separated for long, dude. On the same day, same time, we both ran away. We found each other in this alley, dude.
Wow.
What?
Is that twin connection, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's crazy.
Like when I think about how that could have gone otherwise,
Yeah.
especially being grown now and finding that, I'm like, wow. But yeah, we found each other. Um, and shortly after that, we got picked up by the cops, and then they're like, okay, we can't separate these kids.
Well, yeah. I mean, they don't know, but I mean, they did research about twins, how they have that psychic connection. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
man.
interesting. Yeah.
That's very
It's really,
cool.
really deep. And I think honestly, like being a twin serves me as an actor in a major way
Stunt
because of
double?
the,
No, I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
right. Because of the like deep sense of empathy that you feel. I'm also grateful for my Hawaiian roots because we talk about like having, like you're not ao, your center, your instincts. So, um, and so, so yeah, then we are, so then they put us in the same foster home. We were there for a while. Our dad was able to get us out, and things were good with my dad at the time. He was married. I'm so grateful. At that time we got to know our sister more because we
That's
were
cool.
actually all together. Yeah. Um, and then after the divorce, unfortunately, things got pretty rough. So, but all of that, then when we go through, kind of fast forwarding through that, uh, when we were 15, things had gotten to a point with our dad that we were like, dude, like we were working under the table, getting paid, like ever since we were 13, we were working, we were getting paid, like next to nothing. We actually were like forced to give our dad the money that we were getting, and he would just kind of disappear for like weeks. And then he'd come back in like rent time and he'd take our money again. And so if it wasn't for the fact that we were working at a fast food chain, like that was the main way that we ate. And we had an apple tree in the backyard and we had oatmeal. So I learned how to bake oatmeal cookies. But that's what was keeping us fed through like getting closer to the like our end when we were kids or teenagers with him.
So at 13, you were working at a fast food place, and your dad would do what with the money? Do you know exactly where he would go or what he would do?
I can only speculate. Like my dad, thankfully, like I know he, of course, experimented with drugs, and I will say this for my dad: like he had a rough life. He was a single father. He was kind of stuck in. I know the topic of child support had come up before on the podcast, but in my dad's case, because my mom was kind of out on the streets, he wasn't getting any support, right?
Financially, yeah.
So he's a single father. So I think it got to a point where he thought because we had hit that growth spurt, like we could take care of ourselves.
Right.
And so, but yeah, so I think honestly, he was just kind of disappearing, either hanging out with ladies or, probably doing a bender in some form or fashion. But then like I would get into fights with my dad, like, because when I had first hit that growth spurt, about the time I was 14, I really started to put on more muscle, and my brother hadn't. And so I kind of stepped into, and when we were about 11, my sister went into foster care down in central Utah.
Okay.
So it was just the three of us. And so I kind of stepped into a protector role for my brother.
Gotcha.
I'd get into I'd like confront my dad, keep him away from my brother. And then,
So you were the enforcer.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Came in naturally.
Just a much shorter, less cool enforcer. But then, so he would always say, "You don't like it, there's the door."
Yeah.
And so I told my brother one time, because we lived by the track station, and I'm at this old that they had just been built like 2 years before.
Yeah.
And so I told my brother, I was like, "Look, if something goes down, he says that again, we're going to pack a bag and we'll leave." And so, he was like, "Okay." So my dad comes back, get into a fight, says, "You don't like it, there's the door." He goes into his room. I look at my brother. We go in, we grab our bags, get on the tracks. We go to my friend Tomas. His mom, who was like our first mom. She was our fictive kin mom. And on the weekends, she would take care of us. Like we'd go hang out with Tomas, and she would be there for us. She kept us fed too. Like when we weren't working, honestly, sometimes we would get off of work and then take the bus over to her place instead of going back to our dad's. And so she's like, "We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out." She actually went through the system herself. Things were different in her time where somebody could just offer to take care of the kid. There was no background or anything,
Right.
And so she was like, "It's okay." So she helped us actually get an apartment. It wasn't until, and at the time, my mom had been clean for a little bit, I think, but she was present for a second. I think that my friend's mom reached out to my mom, let her know what was happening, and my mom tried to take custodianship, but it didn't work out. So we went to go register ourselves for school, and that's when they found out that my twin and I were living on our own.
Oh, wow.
And so
How old were you?
at that point, we were 14, almost 15.
Dang.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you had your own apartment? That's kind of cool.
That's
It
G though.
honestly, it was pretty cool. Like we'd have friends come over, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But then like I think just because the way my dad had raised me, I've always been pretty clean.
yeah.
So I'm like, man, they're like making everything messy. My brother's like, don't worry about
Oh,
it, you
that
know.
is so
Eating up
true.
all the food and
Bro,
everything.
we didn't have food. No,
Oh, so that's
that was
you
actually
solved that problem.
I
Yeah.
would tell them like, bring a pizza.
Yeah.
Bring a
Nice.
pizza.
But remember when we found out Eli was a twin? Because he never told us.
Yeah.
Until one day he brought it at work and he's like, I have a twin. I'm like, what twin? And then they were walking by and I was like, am I seeing double?
Yeah, I remember
And
you saying
then,
that.
and then he's like, yeah, that's my twin. I go, when did you get a twin?
Yeah.
I was like, "You
When did
never
this start?"
told-" Yeah, it's like, did you just like? I thought he cloned himself, you know, because that cloning was back then going forward, but it was funny. But that was a good experience.
Yeah, man, that was man. That's so funny. I love seeing people's reactions. Yeah. So at the time, my brother was in the military, and he was coming to visit me, and
Nice.
so of course I wanted him to like see everybody, and I did want people to see him too. Like I told you, man. Like
That was funny. I remember that day.
yeah, bro.
But going back to the subject at hand, so you were living by yourself with your brother, and then the school found out that you were living by yourself, and then what happened then?
So we got picked up by the cops, and they were like, "Look, um, we can take you to the group home." And we're like, "Okay." You know, they're like, either we'll drop you off at your dad's house or we'll take you to the group home. And we're like, which group home is just a nice way to say orphanage.
Right.
So we're like, yeah, you know, because we'd already been in the system. And so we were there. And honestly, dude, there were some really cool programs, man. There was this one called Keys to Success. This guy, Richard, if by some miracle Richard happens to hear this, I just want you to know I never forgot you, man. Thank you so much for the guidance and tutelage. He really helped us to realize, like, well, for one, my fifth grade teacher was the first like real positive role. Shout out to teachers. I'm dating a teacher, but you know, my fifth grade teacher really helped us to understand like just because this is what you're in doesn't mean that that's what you have as an option. You
Yeah.
know, she exposed us to classical music and opera and reading like things just for fun. And you know, she just helped to see a value. She noticed my dad wasn't coming to parent teacher conferences or anything, and so she just kind of took it amongst herself to show support to us. So we stayed in a lot of foster or after school programs to avoid going home for as long as we could when we were living with our dad. But then, yeah, fast forwarding to the Keys to Success, you know, there were some really cool school programs that we had, and then eventually my dad either found out or at that point was ready to come and get us. So he, you know, he came and got us, and he was like, you know, I think it's the typical like abuser, narcissist thing. And I was hearing it. I'm like, are you kidding? He's like, things are going to be different this time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, you know, and they were for like 2 weeks. You know, he was there every night. It was cool. We would like he made my dad could make really great steaks and really great like sausage spaghetti.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, man. So you know, those were some really really core weeks. I had some really good friends too at that time where they would kind of see what was going on and they let us stay at their house for as long as we could. But then uh, my brother and I, after he started to do it all over again, had learned a little bit about what our options were when we
Yeah.
were at the group home. And they said, because we were thinking, let's emancipate ourselves. So legally, it's to say, I'm an adult, I'm acting as an adult, you know, have the eyes of the law recognize me as an adult.
What age are we at now?
Now we're about 15 still,
Okay.
15, almost 16. And picture this, dude. So the state says we only emancipate if you're a pregnant teen, but you can prove your father is unfit.
Ooh.
So we go through for a year, we're living with our dad as we're proving him as an unfit father.
And is he aware of this?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
He
man.
was actually, he never showed up to any of the courts,
Mhm.
like hearings. And it was crazy. I did skip over something. I had a juvie judge, you know, I was dumb. But it was cool because my juvie judge was like, I never want to, he's like, with all due respect, I never want to see you again, you know,
Yeah.
because he was like, hey, you know, he's proud of me. But then it happened to be that our judge for the family court
Same one.
Yeah. He's like, okay, I told you before I didn't want to. But he's like, under these circumstances, I'm happy. So he really cared a lot about us, and he was like, I'm sick of this. I want these boys to have 3 meals a day and not have to worry about like where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
And so it took a year, but we finally were able to prove him as unfit just before I think it was actually a little after we turned 16. And we went into the group home again until we could find a new foster home. And so it was about 3 weeks in there. And then we actually got into the foster home. And that was my foster mom, Susan, and Sergio. They were at the premiere.
Right.
Man, I can't tell you how powerful that was, dude.
I bet I saw it. I felt it because I was sitting right next to them. So I got a nod,
Yeah, man. And so they opened up their home, and it was interesting because the whole, through everything that was going on in my life, I just was saying, like, please, like, if I could just get an opportunity, if something could happen for us, I know that I can, make things better.
Yeah.
Are they bilingual or that's good? So a little bit of background of their foster parents. You know why he knows about the Papa La Huancaína and everything like that,
They're
Jason?
Peruvian? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got some good food when you went in there, huh?
I was spoiled, dude. Yeah.
No wonder he was like, oh, sorry to cut you
okay,
off.
bro.
He was always like, oh, I like this. And when I'm like, how do you know this food, And he's like, I was like, wow. And then that's when he kind of started opening up and telling me his background.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, man. So, and yeah, Arroz con pollo was like everything, dude. Especially because the green rice.
Nice.
Oh,
Especially after like years of eating fast food and pizzas and stuff. I'm sure that like having home cooked meals, that must have been amazing.
yep. And I will say, before my sister got into the foster system, anything she could scrape up, and she was only 2 years older than us, really a year and a half, she was cooking for us.
Yeah.
And so, when it like, for me, anytime my sister cooks for me, it's always like really special.
Yeah.
But yeah, when there was that gap, I was just like, oh, wow, I forgot what this was like,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my foster mom and foster dad, they were really great. Yeah. So, and what I love too, I told Johnny about this. My foster dad's mom was living with us at the time. And we called her abuelita, of course. And she was like, hijo, tienes que aprender cómo hablar español porque Jesús solo habla español.
Facts.
She would walk around.
That's why
blessing
his
the
name
whole
is
house.
Jesus.
That's right. So yeah, she'd walk around the whole house, blessing it all day and everything. She was so sweet. So
Did you learn some Spanish?
yeah, so we are actually it's crazy because I was taking like 5 years of French in school, and then I was like, in the foster home, primarily just spoke Spanish, especially abuelita. She couldn't speak English.
Yeah.
And so I was like, why don't I just learn Spanish? Because everybody comes up to me speaking Spanish anyway. And I could understand most of it, but I couldn't say anything back, And so I ended up taking it for 2 years and became fluent because we were speaking it in the house.
Nice.
And you better believe I was watching the stories with my abuelita, dude.
Yeah.
Novelas?
Oh, yeah.
Novelas, watching novelas with the abuelita. I remember that. That's awesome, Eli. So,
Yeah.
so shout out to your foster parents. I had the pleasure of seeing them, and I saw how emotional you got.
And I feel like, I don't know, to me, like people like that are willing to like take kids in, like there's like a special type of person that is willing to sacrifice. And, a lot of these kids too, have their own issues, and you're bringing them into your house. And so I'm sure it's a lot of work, and, you're on top of that feeding and cleaning and doing laundry and all that stuff.
Making
So
appointments,
yeah. And so I think that if you are a foster parent, like I feel like I commend you, and I think that you're doing God's work.
I don't want to make it about me because it's all about Eli today. My mom was a foster parent.
Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
didn't know that either.
So, and it has a couple interesting story. We had a foster girl that, I had my own house, but we'll come in, and we would always include her and everything because, she's part of the family. And it broke my heart because I still remember until now. She says, I just feel weird. And I go, why? Because you guys always want to include us. Other foster parents just puts us aside. And I just not used to how to do that, and it broke our heart. And it's a hard process, especially because when you go into the foster systems, you have some kind of trauma following you behind.
For sure. Yeah.
So shout out to you, Eli, for becoming the man that you are. I think that made you the strong person, the stronger version of you.
Yeah, and I love like those stories of like facing diversity and having like, that's those situations that could have put you in prison for the rest of your life. You could have gone that route, or you said, you've dealt with violence. You could have, gotten shot or stabbed or whatever, all those situations, but you chose to, move in a positive way. So I commend you for that. And not just from that point, but even now continuing to grow and work on yourself and get in touch with your traumas and the emotions. And I think that you're doing amazing work, dude.
Thank you so much, you guys. Seriously. And honestly, all credit to, well, not all, but a lot of credit goes to my twin. Because legit, man, like, through everything that I went through, I had somebody there with me.
Yeah.
I could always talk to him and he could talk to me. So it was pretty cool to have the being nurtured and nurturing, role both.
Who's older?
He is by a minute and he'll never let it go.
Nice. Because I know they always have that fight, right?
Yeah.
I'm older, so respect me.
Yeah. Respect your elders.
So you said he was in the military. Is he still in the military?
He actually left the military.
What branch did he serve?
He was in the Army.
Nice.
Yep. So he was in there for quite a bit, but unfortunately, it really broke his body. So his shoulders, like both of his shoulders, his elbows, his knees, they're all pretty badly beat up. So he had an honorable discharge. He could have stayed in, I think it was 9 more years, and then he would have been able to retire.
Yeah.
Or actually 8. But at that point, I was like, dude, no, like come live with me, But yeah, he did. Really, really important work. He can't talk about too much of it because of security clearance, but
Right.
from what I understand, what I've inferred, it seems like it was really crucial. So
That's cool.
Nice.
Awesome. Shout out to him for serving the country too.
And what's your twin brother's name?
His name is Zach.
Zach. Shout out to Zach.
Zach and Eli, huh?
Yeah.
That's right.
So our full names, Zachariah and Elijah. So my dad always knew he wanted to name his son Zachariah. And my name was almost Jeremiah,
Oh.
but he went with Elijah.
You don't look like a Jeremiah. He don't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You look like an Eli.
Yeah,
I
man.
can't picture you, Jeremiah. I mean, he would have fit in, right? 3
Yeah.
J's in a pod.
Call me
Yeah.
Jerry. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, for real, huh?
That's right.
So, but yeah, man. So,
So you spent time. How long did you spend with your foster parents? The second go,
so we were in there for about 2 years.
2 years.
Because from the time you're 16, then you can only stay until you're 18.
Oh,
So you
okay.
aged out with them.
You got it. Yep. Yeah. And again, I mean, he was there by my side. Yep. So
So after you aged out, but did you still maintain that bond
Mm-hmm.
even though you aged out?
yeah. So when we aged out, there was this program called Independent Living where they would actually teach you, like how to balance a checkbook, like they get you set up with a checking account, like all these important life skills that, usually parents are teaching you, but you don't really have that. And there was actually a really cool connection that got my brother and I into the youth council with the state of Utah. Through that, we were actually able to make it so that kids that were aging out of foster care would have insurance through the state until they were 22.
Nice. That's
because-
awesome.
Yeah, right. Because when you're aging out, without the independent living program, especially, it's just kind of like, okay, good luck,
Yeah.
And like I said, it's come a long way because of that program and different things like that. But yeah, so we did some work in the nonprofit field and things like that. And then I'm sorry, guys, I lost track of the question.
Well, we're just kind of wrapping up of what it looked like those 2 years that you did with your foster parents, and then Johnny asked if you've kept the relationship with them and what kind of that looked like of you transitioning out of that foster care.
Yeah, man. So thankfully, yes. So we actually we have a foster brother as well that we were really close to. He really had come out of his shell as well in our senior year. So it was really cool to see him kind of like kick butt. He's actually currently doing really great, living the dad life. He's successful. But
Sorry,
So
your
we-
Uncle Eli? Sorry.
no, yeah. I'm very grateful I am. And so in his case, so we were staying in touch with him because we, of course, considered him a brother and a good friend. And through that, we would still say, we'd stop in. These days, we're really, and unfortunately, it's not as often as I want, but really like for Thanksgiving or Christmas, one of the two, would usually stop in.
Get together.
Mhm.
That's
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Building those relationships and that circle of people that have been there through your struggles, specifically, like you said, your brother, and just these people that kind of came together to help you guys out. And now look at you being acting in movies.
Oh yeah, now let's go to the happy place.
Yeah, let's
Just
do it.
enough of the sad stuff.
Speaking about something positive, you went through your struggles as a kid, and now your movie was playing at Megaplex, right? If I understand that correctly, tell the people a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we worked on Among the Eight for about 4 months last year, and it was basically every weekend, some weeknights. We were shooting that, and it was an extremely low budget movie. We made the whole thing for about $5,000.
Wow.
And it's crazy because I think I can't remember who brought it up, but they were like, this movie was considered an indie. Yeah, actually, Jason. So we did bring you a ticket and an Among the Eight bracelet, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Since you could make
dude.
it to the premiere, we got you a little swag.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
I got to get it. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so we worked on that. I had a wonderful. There we go.
Sweet, dude. That's dope. We're gonna have to put that up on the podcast studio.
Hell yeah. Yeah, there you go. Boom.
A bracelet too. Nice. Appreciate
for the
it.
viewers watching this, it's a bracelet. Okay, you see the little baggie. I know what you're thinking, but that's a bracelet.
I'm making sound effects with the bag.
Yeah,
No, it's a happy bag.
it's a happy. Well, no, I'm just kidding. No,
Yeah, I had to mess around, Eli.
yeah. Yeah, man. So it was a lot. I joked that you get really delirious when it's like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Just still going, but you have a lot of fun, man. Like the whole cast and crew, and honestly,
And it's a first time director too, right?
yeah, it's
Shout
his
out
first
to
feature.
Eric Lozano, right?
You got it. Yep, his very first feature film. So, and he crushed it, man. Like, not only did he co-write and direct, he also edited, and I got to see through the months after that we wrapped how hard he was working to edit that, and I think it really shone through. Like when you're watching it.
Oh yeah, I was like, I got into the movie. Plus, my boy was the main star. Yeah. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but I was blaming Eli for everything in the movie. I was like, it has to be Eli.
One
Because-
thing one thing that I'm interested in is, with you work a regular 9 to 5, right? You have a girlfriend, you have your regular life. How do you squeeze in shooting a full movie? You said it's an hour and 45. Yeah. So how do you squeeze in that time? I know you said you did some weekends and stuff like that. How do you manage that? And I know you hit the gym obviously as well.
I see you
Looking
guys.
swole.
Not as much as I want to, I promise, but yeah, thanks, bro. Well, honestly, first of all, shout out to my partner. Felicity is like the best partner I could have. She also does acting. She understands, what that's like to, she's up late being a reader in auditions. She helps with so much. She'll hang out on set, just be like the unofficial grip, and so I'm just so grateful that our paths happened to cross. And then, I work the day job. I'm also grateful that my old manager was like a fan. He was like, dude, do it, so he was helping me to get time
Nice.
off. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, man, it's crazy. And I think you guys probably feel this with a podcast and other things in your life where it doesn't feel like a job. Things you have to do feel like a burden, whereas the things that you want to do energize you.
Yeah.
And shout out to Felicity. She's in our audience today. We have a live audience.
Woo!
Yeah.
Hey,
And-
so how did you meet Felicity? Sorry. Where did?
Yeah. So actually, it was actually on set of Among the Eight.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how long have you guys been together for?
It depends. If you
Who you ask?
it depends. Yeah. If you start at the time that we started dating, it's almost a year.
Okay.
I officially asked her to be my girlfriend in November, though.
Nice. Good man.
That's cool. She's also a teacher, so shout out to that. She's a teacher.
What grade does she teach?
She teaches second.
Second? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
And dude,
More power to you.
Yeah.
when I think about go ahead, brother.
No, I say I have 2 kids and it's hard. Imagine you dealing with 30 kids. Wow.
It's tough.
I got to join them for a field trip last Friday, and I was like, man, it was cool to see her in her element, but I'm like, man. But it's kind of funny to me. I kind of chuckle sometimes and think to myself, like, because I've had positive role models, like teachers were the only positive role models in my life when I was a kid. Um, it's kind of funny that I would be with a teacher.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
It all
Hey.
falls into place.
Yeah. I think it's all in sync, right?
yeah, definitely.
You guys had common things. You guys both like acting.
hmm
That's good.
Yeah, man. So it was crazy because we were on set and we needed background actors to be in the wedding scene. And so her best friend played my sister in the movie.
Oh, cool.
And so she brought her along and, she walks in, I was like, oh, she's cute. But then I was like, power dynamic, dude, like be professional, stay focused on the movie. Um, and so, I didn't talk to her at that time. I just stayed on track and made sure. But then after we had wrapped, her best friend had a party. And that's where we actually started to talk and get to know each other. And after that, yeah, it was funny because the director had met her at that party. Well, really got to like talk to her more at that party, like me.
Yeah.
And we didn't know we needed to find an actress to film the stinger scene at the end. And so she and I had started talking, and so we were talking for about a week. And then Eric hits me up and he's like, "Hey, do you remember that Felicity girl from the barbecue?" He's like, "What do you think if we bring her on to play your wife at the end?" And I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great."
Were you playing it cool like in the movie? Yeah. Okay.
Yep, I really was too. So she was
Are
trying
you like,
to.
yes, come on, do it.
Yeah, no,
please."
it was definitely one of those where I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I remember her. Yeah, that's cool, man." Inside, I'm like, "Let's go."
My wife. Yeah. Yeah. Let's get it.
But yeah, and I've just been, we basically, I mean, after we were dating more and more, and we've just spent so much time together. It's just like I said, I'm just so lucky, man. So,
Nice, nice. Yeah, I like the movie. There's a part that I didn't like. I told Eli, he's not defending Kobe. He's against Kobe.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was like, man, I
Not
don't know
good.
about that. He was up here. He
Yeah,
went a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit down.
I
Yes,
think
'cause have to
that's
show
where
Eli
you
haven't
started.
seen this.
Oh, let's go, bro. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah,
For those listening, Johnny's showing off his Kobe tattoo.
and you want to hear this? My baby's middle name is Kobe.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Dude, you know what's funny? So, for those who don't know me, I'm not a sports guy, man. I literally am that guy who's like sports ball.
Yeah.
I know like nerdy stuff like books, comic books, movies, and so the writer, like the Eric is the director and co-writer. He's big into basketball.
Nice.
He loves Kobe.
Shout out to Eric again. Good choice.
And so, when he wrote that conversation, I was like, what is a chip?
I saw Eli shooting. I was like, okay, Eli, I need to show you how to shoot. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
I know, right? I need to get a coach to actually
Yeah,
show
right.
me.
There you go.
How about the pool scene? What you said and how many shots did it take?
Oh, bro, dude. So,
Tell Jason about the pool scene. That's awesome.
yeah, man. So that was actually our first night shooting, where it was a cool way for us to, because we had done one party where we all just hung out, got to know each other a little bit, and then he was like, "There's going to be a montage where we're playing pool and hanging out, so let's make that like the first thing that we shoot, but literally just hang out, get to know each other." And there's booze in the movie, but none of us were actually drinking.
Okay.
But we were just hanging out, playing pool, and then he's like, "All right, let's improv some lines," because in the movie, my character's then wife, her ex shows up to the wedding,
Oh.
and he's stuck with us because of the storm. And so it's tough. So we end up playing, the montage ends where he and I play pool against each other. And dude, I would improv some hard lines, man. I was like, oh, well then da da da. And then I would shoot it and just scratch.
Oh.
I was like, well, there
Yeah,
goes
you
that,
couldn't
man.
finish it off, huh? You had a good line, just couldn't finish it
Dude,
through.
I have never prayed harder for a pull ball to go into the man, but that was fun. Yeah, man.
You end up beating up this dude.
You had to watch the movie, Jason.
Yeah.
Can't
Ooh,
give
I
you no
like it.
spoilers.
That's good. I like that.
We are a
For
person to
for people listening, is the movie available for streaming, or let us know where we
Yeah.
can watch that? Or
Absolutely. So right now it's actually making its run through film festivals. And when that's happening, thanks, brother. When that
I'm
happens,
so excited. Sorry. I'm
Thanks.
just starstruck.
Yeah, fingers crossed. No, I'm still your boy, man. I'm just me, dude.
I know.
You know, like
But I get nervous.
I'm trying to. No, I'm gonna. You know, I legit, man. All it is, like any success that comes my way, I am making sure I surround myself with people who know me.
Yeah,
You know what
for
I mean?
sure.
Like I'm not interested in status. Like for me, especially like the Hawaiian way, man, is if you or really any First Nations, if you hoard goods, wealth, success, and you don't help your community, that's a vice. You know,
Yeah,
like we classify success as people who hoard a lot of money.
right.
For me, man, if I get that lucky, my goal is always to give back. But I need people who know me to keep me humble,
Yeah.
because I don't know what's ahead of me, right? So, but fingers crossed. But yeah, I just just to throw that out there, bro. Like big time, I want to stay grounded, stay central. So don't nothing to feel starstruck over, brother. I'm just me.
No, I'm happy. I'm just proud of you, bro.
Thanks,
That's the
bro.
kind of people that need to be successful, the ones that are willing to help others. And with your story, I'm sure like you could do so much with like the whole foster care system
Mhm.
too, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I've actually uh, the short film I'm about to direct was written by a social worker who works closely with the foster community.
Nice.
So that's really cool. And then same thing with like First Nations. So I've done some nonprofit work with the First Nations, but I want to do more. Yeah, there's a bunch of like I have like a dream list, not of things I want to buy, of just ways I hope to help one day. But so right now it's not streaming because when you're in festivals, in order to help people, in order for the festival to get people to show up and buy tickets,
Yeah.
they prefer that it's not available yet.
Right. That makes sense.
So right now, the next local festival it'll be in is called Zepstone in September. And then pretty much as soon as, because that's the latest one that it'll be out at, as soon as that ends, it's basically on deck to start streaming. It should start on Amazon, and then there's a couple more that are actually in queue. But I shouldn't say where yet because there's a couple of check boxes.
Yeah.
No, it's understandable.
So among the 8, the past may shatter the future, huh? I'm super excited. I want to check it out. You guys got me interested. If people want to follow your journey as far as your acting career, what are your socials that they could maybe follow you? And I'm sure you'll post once it's available for stream and people could tune in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you are, because I see you brought up my IMDb. So thank you so much. The
Yeah.
trailer is available on my IMDb, but it's also on YouTube if that's easier. But yeah, man, honestly, I am a big fan of if I'm going to say something online, I'm not going to do it anonymously.
Yeah.
So even before I made the plunge of doing acting, I just kept everything Elijah Amit.
Okay.
So if you just look, and I have a weird spelling on my last name. Luckily, if you're looking at, watching the podcast, you can see it, but AMODT. So Instagram's where I'm most active. But yeah, I'll occasionally post on Facebook and stuff. But I would say look for updates for both Among the 8, my other projects this year, and then next year should be the next big premiere that I'm
Nice.
another lead in. And so yeah, just feel free to follow me there.
Nice. Cool. Getting all these projects.
Yeah, we're going to pre-order my tickets.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, brother.
No, you saw me. I went. I hustled for that ticket.
For real, dude.
I was like, I kept. I had so many things going on. I kept missing it, but I was happy that I made it. And then, what's the biggest, film festival that you're in?
Yeah, so actually we have 2 that are in the big cities. So there's one in New York City, there's one in LA
Nice.
that we're in. And we actually found out the day of the premiere, I had advanced for Best Actor in the LA one and at the local one.
Nice, dude.
Congratulations.
Congrats,
I know you're
yeah.
gonna get
Thanks,
it.
you guys. Fingers crossed, man.
Just throw it out there in the universe.
Oh,
You'll
yeah.
be surprised.
Yeah. We'll be following. We'll be cheering you on, Eli. I appreciate you coming in. Is there anything else you want to add to the end of this?
I just want to say thank you guys so much again for this podcast. I think it's really important for people to hear, recognizing it's okay to be vulnerable. There's always growth through self-analysis, which is kind of your default mindset, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then all the growth that you've had since the time that you and I even just had last seen each other is really admirable. So it's great that you guys are sharing this platform to help share that message. I just want to say, keep that, keep doing that. And yeah, I just hope that this helps reach somebody to say, hey, it's okay to open up. It's okay to talk to someone. If you don't have someone, there are still, resources that you can call. Worst case scenario, just feel free, to find free resources. There are outreach programs everywhere. And just always know that you were put on the earth for a reason, and the world is better for having you here.
Wow.
That's beautiful,
That
man.
was deep. We're going to end it with that.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thanks you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you. Remember to always love yourself. Thanks, Eli, for coming on, and tune into the next episode. Take care, guys.